you another edition of our Executive Insights. And that's really when we bring one of our board members to share something that's topical and I think compelling, and talks a little bit about, I think, a bit about their experience and also about their journey, as well as something that can lend itself to contemporary times. And obviously, we're living in times of really trying to work hard, thinking about the difference between being busy and being productive, as John and I were discussing a little bit earlier. And then some people are thinking about what they can do. I don't say what am I going to do when I grow up, but what am I going to do next? What am I going to try next? And I think, John, you and body a lot of this. So as we get into this, I'll give you an introduction. I'd invite anybody, if you're not speaking, maybe put us on mute. That would help everyone out. But if you are, it's going to be interactive and some good discussion. So if you do have questions, feel free to raise your hand or to take yourself off mute so that you can participate in the conversation. John Trainor is the Chief Technology Officer for Wahoo Fitness. In that role, he helps Wahoo achieve its mission of being the global brand of choice for passionate endurance enthusiasts by delivering a simple yet powerful ecosystem for training, competing, and having fun. And I can speak from experience that John embodies that, and as an avid runner, he's also an evangelist for running, and so I can see this as being a great fit for you, John. John has over 25 years of technology experience in retail, financial services, public utilities, and government. He has a degree in electrical engineering from Georgia Tech. John's TAG experience involves from the chairman of the TAG Board of Directors and founding chairman of the TAG Mobility Society, chairman of the Summit for 2 years, chairman of Geek Rush, that's our 5K. And not only does John build technology and endurance athletes, he runs, cycles, and swims himself. John and his wife, Heather, live in Roswell and are happy empty nesters. I love that update. And are the parents of 3 sons. And just on a personal note, John and I have had a chance to work together probably over the last decade. And a lot of it has been around, as we started the mobility initiative in Atlanta and talking about the benefits of mobile technology. John is a brand expert, and he's really great about doing a couple things, and that is about creating, connecting people to the brand. And John gives a great presentation to our team, usually about once a year or so, about creating super fans. And I think that part of that he's been able to translate to his own personal brand about creating a lot of people that he's connected to, but actually connecting to them in a very genuine way. And as he's pivoted from, been in large corp and now into more high growth companies, he's taken that experience with him. And I know this is going to be a very compelling conversation today. And with that, let me introduce my friend, John Trainor.
Awesome. Thank you, Larry. So I do hope it's interactive. I was given the option of doing a deck, and I started doing it, and I was like, I'm just going to turn everybody off if I do that. So I have some notes of things I want to talk about that hopefully is the reason you came here. But I really would like to answer questions more than anything so that we can direct the conversation to what you want to do. And one of the things that I'll talk about just to highlight what I've done recently is my journey, my career journey. Because I've just made a change, and it's a good opportunity and time to look back at where I have come from. I grew up in the Atlanta area. I was born in Michigan, but grew up in the Atlanta area in Smyrna. And it was really a no-brainer that I'd go to Georgia Tech. And when I was growing up, I would take apart radios that weren't working and try to solder stuff back together. And I would, probably really got my start in electronics when I didn't have a ton of money growing up, and I had bought my first car, had saved up and bought my first car. I used to drive a moped to work so that I could earn money at age 15, and I was able to then buy a car. And when I did that, I love hip hop, and the only way to listen to, at the time it was called rap. We didn't have sophisticated hip hop, but the only way to listen to rap is to listen to it with a significant amount of bass. Like you've got to feel your chest thumping in order to experience rap appropriately. And so I knew I wanted to invest in a car stereo. So I saved up all my money, probably 3 or 4 weeks worth of saving up $120 to go buy a head unit of something for my car, because I had the stock one in a Dodge 400, which looked like a grandma car, and it was a grandma car. And I went to Hi-Fi Buys, which is now at the Battery, and I bought a head unit. It was $126 or something. And then I said, okay, no, you do install it right now, or what do you do? And they said, oh, no, you got to pay $40 more to have it installed. And I was devastated. I finally had saved up enough money. $40 is going to probably take me 2 or 3 weeks to save up. And I just couldn't wait that long. So I went home and said, I'll just figure this out. And I worked at a grocery store, so I had a box cutter. And my dad had some electrical tape laying around still. And so with a box cutter, a screwdriver, and electrical tape, I stayed up all night long and installed a car stereo, and actually didn't break anything. And it was before you had the internet, where you could probably look and they tell you exactly what to do. I didn't know how to take off a dash. I didn't know how to do any of that. It was pretty janky how I did it, but I got it working. And that started my love of electronics. I'd done some stuff, year earlier, had soldering iron at age 9, but yeah, that's really where I started doing good stuff with it. And I started adding to my sound system. And at one point I had a lot more wattage than probably was legal in my car, with a lot of speakers, all cleverly hidden. And I had a B98.5 sticker so that none of my gear would get stolen, because they thought I listened to B98.5, which I did. I love Dan Fogelberg too. But so I start installing for other buddies, because they think I do good work, and I just did more and more of that. And so I knew that I wanted to do something with acoustics and electronics. So the only school really I could afford was Georgia Tech. I looked at other schools, like some out-of-state schools, but I couldn't afford those. And I knew I had the co-op program at Tech to lean on to be able to do that. So I got in there and got into Tech. And I got enough money in scholarships this was pre-Hope, and I got enough money in scholarships to fund my first year at Georgia Tech. And I started doing electrical engineering, like a survey of electrical engineering courses. And the first one I hit was a computer engineering class. And it was the most amazing thing. It all made sense to me. Like I didn't need to read the book. Everything, all the ones and zeros made sense to me. And pretty quickly I just automatically started gravitating towards, while I was still a double E, into the computer engineering type stuff. And I got my degree in electrical engineering, but probably should have been a Comp E or a CS. I was the worst student that you could ever have at Georgia Tech. There's a thing called the Square Root Club. And for those of you that don't know what that is, it's when your GPA, when the square root of your GPA is higher than your GPA. For those non-engineers, that means it was less than 1 at least 1 quarter. Just about got kicked out of Tech, but I was able to figure out how to hang on and graduate. I still have those dreams that they call me back and they say there was an error in your records and you didn't really graduate, but hopefully it wouldn't matter now anyway. So during that time, I co-opted to pay for school, worked in electrical engineering departments at a power plant for Georgia Power, and then a distribution headquarters for Georgia Power. But I kept getting pulled into computers, and there's if you've seen, I've said this a number of times, so it's not a surprise. So if you've heard me talk before, I'll say this over and over again. There's a Bubba Sparks line where he says, "I didn't choose Ryman, Ryman chose me." And then there's some other good stuff that follows that. But and I feel like I didn't choose computing. Computing chose me. I kept getting pulled into it. And so I did, while I was finishing up my degree, I'd stopped co-opting. I wanted to be student body president at Georgia Tech. I did that. And then I had a little bit of time before I could finish up my degree. And so I went to work for Paul Coverdell, who's a United States Senator here in Georgia. And that was a phenomenal experience. I did all his technology for here and up in DC. And then I went back to the Southern Company, back to Georgia Power's parent company. And then just switched at that point from more of a hardware type thing into software development. And then about a year and a half in, I was about to leave and just start my own consulting company to do technology work for political campaigns, because I was doing that somewhat as a hobby and to pay some bills. And my boss at Georgia Power, I'd worked with, Southern Company, I'd worked with for a while, he pulled me over to Aaron's, and that really spoke to my last 20 years. He was the first person he pulled over when he became CIO of Aaron's, the first CIO they had. And that set up a good run career-wise. But it wasn't that I had picked Aaron's. Aaron's kind of, because of Lee, I was brought over to Aaron's, and I loved Aaron's. I love the people of Aaron's, a phenomenal team of Aaron's. But it wasn't that I picked Aaron's. I didn't necessarily pick retail. I didn't pick financial services. It was just something that I fell into, and it gave me an awesome opportunity to take care of my family, to raise kids. So if you think about a 20-year time frame, that really I had a 2-year-old, 1-year-old, and I was able to raise some kids that are now 23, 22, and 20. So that gave me a lot of stability during that time. It allowed me to learn a lot of things. I was challenged. I had to grow a company from 400 million to 4 billion. Really stress tested what I could do and know. But then I hit a point where I became CIO in 2010. And then I hit a point, it was probably a couple years ago, frankly, where I wasn't struggling every day to get better. I just didn't find myself. I used to really get nervous, and especially when I became CIO, I was convinced I could not do that job, and that I'd be figured out as a fraud almost immediately. I had that imposter syndrome, which, by the way, is the feeling I had when I switched to software at Southern Company, and it's the feeling I had when I started at the Senate office, and it's the feeling I had if I go all the way back to what I did my first co-op role at a power plant. The entire time I felt I was an imposter and couldn't do the job. And it scared the heck out of me. And I'd lost that fear maybe a couple years ago. I felt like I was somewhat on autopilot. There were still challenges. I was still working hard. It's not like I had my foot off the gas, but I just wasn't scared to death. And so that was bothering me because I felt like I wasn't growing. I think that imposter syndrome forces you to challenge yourself to grow. And I just didn't feel like I was growing. So I made the decision that I needed to do something that would scare the heck out of me. And when I did that, I decided to look at what do I love doing a lot, and what am I passionate about outside of work? And is there a way where I can construct a reality where I get to do the stuff that I'm passionate about outside of work with what I do well, or what I think I do well? And is there a way to scare the heck out of myself again so that I can grow a little bit more quickly? So I started looking at what that would be. I hit up a large travel airline-oriented company based out of Atlanta, and said, "Hey, I know you're always trying to do agile transformation. I know how to do agile. I've been doing it since 2007 and probably led the way for a lot of larger companies. I can help you that because I love travel. I love going places. My wife and I love to travel a bunch. Even with our kids, we've traveled a lot." And they're like, "Nah, we don't need you." That ended up turning out to be a good thing that didn't work out, I guess. And it just had happened that a few months, probably a little bit a year ago, I had run across Chip, the founder of Wahoo, at a party, and we didn't really talk about Wahoo, but I was a huge fanboy, like huge fanboy. I'd been riding a Wahoo kicker. I have a 2014 model. Love the products, love the bike computers. Just if you're in the cycling or triathlon world, you probably really like Wahoo a lot. You either ride with Wahoo or Garmin for the most part, and I have a little bit of both. And so I just I was like, man, if I could work somewhere where I love the product that much, and I also nerd out on fitness technology. If you wanted to ask me questions about that, I could talk a lot. And I thought it'd be great with what I know there and with what I know with technology that I could marry the two. And so I pitched to Wahoo, "Hey, you need me in this role." And I didn't know if they did or not, but I knew they were doing some acquisitions, and it looked like the growth trajectory was such that I could probably help grow the company. And I just got super lucky and it worked out. It was time for me to leave Aaron's anyway. So these were kind of separate, but everything just came together. I didn't know if the Wahoo thing was going to work out or not, but everything just came together pretty well. And so I made the transition, and I have scared the heck out of myself again. I'm now managing a team of 80 or so people, and I've gotten back to my electrical engineering roots. I manage electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, firmware engineers, software engineers, UX people are not in my group, but work closely with them. And we're spread across the world. I've got folks in Brisbane, Australia. I've got New Zealand, Amsterdam, Atlanta, Reno, a bunch of different places across the globe, which adds a certain wrinkle. While I'd worked with teams in India and Philippines, it's very different when you have direct reports that are across the globe. I'm still trying to figure that one out. And it moved me away from that traditional CIO thing to running products that you buy or some stuff you make. We made some things internally at Aaron's for customer experience stuff, but now I'm actually making real products. I'm making real physical products. And if you see something, if you see a product that has come out of Wahoo, then I had our team built it is really, so if there's something we're selling, if we're going to survive as a company, then I have a team that has built it. So I wanted to lay that out there, because what I have found is, while I'm still scared to death about this job, and while it's super, super difficult, I can feel myself growing in a way that I haven't felt in a few years. That excitement is every single day of the exhilaration of a challenge is really, really powerful motivator to work your butt off. And I feel like I've gotten that back. And I'm working in a job where it's expected of me to go and ride for 3 or 4 hours on the weekend to test new products out. And that has a good benefit on overall health. So wanted to lay all that out there. I can certainly talk about what I've done from a quote unquote branding. And I want to talk about why I think it's a little bit misleading, but I also wanted to pause now and answer questions based upon what I described as my journey.
Any questions, you can put them also in the chat, and I'll moderate them if needed.
And if you don't ask them, I'll just keep rambling. So, all right, I might keep rambling. I don't think we have any yet.
Hey, John, I got a question.
Yeah,
I can't type fast enough for that. So, how did all the skills you learned from the development process, the sort of manufacturing process of software, translate over to the manufacturing process of building bicycles, if at all?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm still figuring that out. When you have software, and we did some phenomenal stuff at Aaron's. The Aaron's technology team was and still is, I think, I always would say, the best in the Atlanta area. And I think that's still very much true, because while Aaron's is a 60-plus-year-old furniture rental company that makes its own furniture and does electronics appliances, you would think it'd be boring, but we did a lot of really good innovation where our deployments per day to Aaron's.com was about 8.5 production deployments per day, full CI/CD pipeline, really far ahead of a lot of enterprises the size of Aaron's. And we did that not because of the metric, but we did it because in a 4 or 5 year period, that team went from a $0 business to a $150 million business. And the business value we created through a fast cycle time and quick deployment of features and value to our customers is what created that business value. And that the ability to deploy 8.5 times a day in software is really powerful. But now I have, let's say we're making a new bike computer. I've got a mechanical engineering drawing that has electronics inside of it. Everything needs to be spaced properly. You need to know when the battery is charging that it's going to heat up and expand a little bit. So you can't do, you can't do this. You can't just assume everything's going to go to plan. You've got water ingress points. You've got all these things. And every time you tool up a new tool, you're looking at 5 or 6 weeks to change the tool. And oh, by the way, if you get it wrong, you might have to throw that tool out and get a brand new one for the housing. And messing up in software is typically fixing a few lines of code. Messing up in hardware is a 5-week delay in delivering your product. And it's very complex. And then you layer in the double E, and then you've got to layer software on top of it. So what I am doing right now, and this is really an area where I'm trying to get better, is I'm trying to take the basic principles. Like if you read the Agile Manifesto, there are basic principles in the Agile Manifesto around valuing people over process, for example, valuing working software versus comprehensive documentation. Not that you don't do comprehensive documentation, but you value one over the other. And I'm trying to take those concepts and infuse them into the hardware build out so that you have the same approach around people. You still make sure that you distribute the commander's intent to the teams closest to the work and expect them to do great things. You don't do command and control. You do all these things that work in Agile. I'm trying to adapt those to hardware. And the nice thing is I have a team that is already predisposed to wanting to do that, but I've got to figure that out. And it's not trivial to do that, but we've gotten some really good wins. One of the things I just completed, we had a specific failure that was happening on a motor control unit for our kicker bike, and it was hard to track down. And when it did happen, it was hard to get. The failure was such it was hard to tell what was causing the failure, and we just solved it, which was huge. And I did a blameless postmortem, or a blameless lessons learned, where we just produced the first report on that, where what we're trying to do is become a learning organization in the same way that Amazon or Etsy or one of those organizations is a learning organization. And I think that's what I can take from Agile, and that's what I can take from software, is how do we infuse learning back into what we do every single day. I don't know if I answered your question or not, JD, but that's kind of it.
No, it's really good. And the blameless evaluation is a really cool concept. I think I'm going to hang on to that one.
Well, it's hard, and go look it up. You can see good, like Etsy has a great article about how to run a blameless postmortem. And it's really hard. Everybody has to take, they have to take their ranks off their shoulders and put them down and enter it. And the facilitator needs to make sure that if anybody even tries to blame themselves, that you redirect that, because there's a theory going into a blameless postmortem that everybody acted as well as they could, given the knowledge they had at the time, with the skills they had at the time, and that nobody was nobody was not doing a good job. And if you go with that approach, then you start solving the process. You don't solve the people. Eventually, maybe there's a people problem, but generally, if you engineer it and you say, today we're going to assume that we want to fix whatever's broken, such that we're going to be as stupid as we were today in the future. Let us assume we're going to be as stupid as we are today as we are in the future, and let's engineer our processes to compensate for that. And when you think of it that way, it really helps.
Hey, John, the senior, you talked about passion and how important that is. And I know you've seen the Simon Sinek video or TED Talk about the why, how, and what. Maybe talk a little bit about what that's meant to you, because I've always looked at you and your roles and everything, that you bring such passion to everything. And then translate, maybe talk a bit about what TAG, the community. I know you've been incredibly involved in a number of nonprofits, ATP, and you're always a shining light there. You are the super organizer and fan for all of us. So thank you for all that. But if you could talk about those, how they maybe intersect.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, I love Simon Sinek. I think I'm voraciously consume his content and learn a lot from it. And on the concept of why, I lead a meeting in the interim. I'm going to fill a role for this Monday, which I can't wait to dump this work on him. But I lead a role for a meeting that we have. We have like 5 of them a week called Scrum of Scrums, and I'm glad I've done that because it's given me the ability to be deep in the hand-to-hand combat of work, and it's helpful. But one of the things I do every time I lead these meetings is I remind everybody who's been in these meetings now for weeks with me, but I remind them every time why we're there. And they probably think it's silly, but I bet you if you ask people, 6 weeks ago why they were going to that meeting, they couldn't answer. Right now, they probably could verbatim answer the question there. I also throw in there, talking about the passion piece of it, I throw in one of the objectives of the meeting is that we have fun. So, and we evaluate ourselves on whether or not we had fun in these meetings. But I think it's really important to constantly talk about the why. That is the most important thing to get right. And there was an interesting phrase I heard, which is, when you're sick of telling them, they're starting to hear it. And you just forget that you have internalized so much of the why, and then you start saying, let's do this. People are nowhere near where you are because you've been thinking about it while you're mowing your grass or driving around. And this is maybe the 3rd time they've heard it. They haven't had a chance to internalize it. So I really believe in starting with why, because then once everybody understands the why, then you have the commander's intent, and you're not having to dictate exactly the what's and hows. The how a little bit, in that we should all work together similarly, and then the what's almost just take care of themselves. So, and then on the second part of that question, I will be honest. I am this sounds terrible to say. I am somewhat selfish. I feel that I am somewhat selfish in the community involvement piece. And what I mean by that is, while I think it's great to spend time helping year up interns understand what's next for them in their career, I think that's a really noble thing. I've used Year Up as a pipeline for talent, and because I've got a business to run. And while I think that it's great to spend time with Power My Learning or Inspired You, I believe that if the middle school that I went to, Floyd Middle School in Mableton, it has it's not in an affluent area, and it qualifies from the metrics that Power My Learning looks at on whether or not they're going to serve middle school. It qualifies for that middle school, and I'm helping Power My Learning because I would have hoped that when I was growing up, there was an organization ready to serve Floyd Middle School, and I'm sure there were, and I just didn't know about it. And so I just believe that we all need to take it on ourselves to go help people, because either we were helped and we need to pay that back, or we should have been helped in some way. Somebody should have been there for us, and now it's our time to do that. And then I feel like the selfish piece is, I feel like I've gotten way more, and everybody says this, but I can cite examples, but I've gotten way more back from spending time with organizations, whether it's TAG or Power My Learning or Year Up or whatever the organization might be. I get so much more back. And I thought I was doing it because just because it's the right thing to do. But when you start looking at it, it makes your life rounder. I had a great opportunity. This was so powerful, and it reminded me why you do things like this. So we've had Year Up interns since the first class in Atlanta. We had a period of a year or two where we didn't have a couple. And Aaron's, I say we, Aaron's, I still consider it a we, but I would try to go to graduations of Year Up interns. And for those of you that don't know what Year Up is, go Google them, look for the 60 Minutes interview with Gerald Cherchavian, phenomenal phenomenal organization, and get some interns in your company if you can, because you will not regret it. But I would try to get to the graduations because I get a lot out of them. I learn a lot. And there was a gentleman that spoke. He pretty much gave the keynote speech, a graduate that was graduating, a guy named Devon. And God, he was familiar, but I was like, he didn't intern with us, but I was like, man, Devon's familiar. And he gave this spoken word speech that brought tears to my eyes, and it was talking about how to seize your career and how to be the best regardless of the obstacles in your way. And he obviously, I think it's, if you go to Year Up Atlanta and you search back 6 months or so, or maybe a year, you'll find the speech. It's worth watching because it's so powerful. And I was so impressed. I wanted to find him after the speech, but it's so crowded there at the World Congress Center, and I missed him. I just want to say that really inspired me, and it was awesome. And I go home, and then I pinged my oldest son, who does technology sales, Jack, and I said, hey, you missed a good Year Up graduation. He goes, yeah, I think Devon graduated. And I was like, Devon, what are you talking about? He goes, yeah, Devon Wallace. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he goes, Devon, who I used to wrestle against. And it turns out that for 3 years of Jack wrestling, he wrestled Devon, and they were head to head. They had the most competitive wrestling. He went to Lithonia, Jack went to Marist, and they became bitter rivals and best buddies, because they really respected each other, because they both, at every single tournament, it was usually the two of them in the championship. And I thought to myself, how amazing is this, and he had lost his dreads. He had shorter hair, so I didn't recognize him. I was like, how amazing is this? I know this guy is an amazing competitor, and now I know him as a Year Up graduate, and I can't wait for the day when I can hire him. And he and I have been talking. I'm actually, I don't know that I have anything right now, but I am blessed to go to Year Up because I'm going to learn more about who is the talent that's emerging out there. And Devon's a great example of that. And I know his work ethic. So I don't know if I answered your question, Senior, but
Yep.
that's why I do this stuff.
That's perfect. The only thing I'd add is that with Simon, I've looked at it also that everyone has a why, and has whys, and trying to understand what people's whys are, that's where their passion is, right? And if you can help them, achieve
Yeah.
their whys, you get a return on that, which I think community delivers a lot of that. I know you've seen that.
Well, and Senior, that is one thing that I haven't figured out yet in my new role with and somebody asked a question about managing people across the globe or their cultural differences. Absolutely, there are. I just had a science lead who lives in Amsterdam, took a 2-week vacation, and he didn't check email, and he didn't do Slack, and he was gone for 2 weeks. And the American in me is like, what is wrong with this guy? But obviously nothing's wrong with this guy. It's exactly how you would vacation if you're a normal, sane person. But the
They call it a civilized approach to life over there.
Yes,
I live over in the UK, and I've got somebody actually that helps with multinational teams with executives that's been doing it a long time, and I'll pass her along to you.
Yeah, that's good. That is awesome. And so I'm learning that, but then I'll tell you what I really have underestimated the value of. And you talk about what motivates every individual. The why for everybody is so different. And what I got with all 250, 300 people in one place at Aaron's is I got to know the names of kids. I got to know what sports people played. I got to know what games, video games they play, if they 3D printed or not. And I got to find out what really motivated everybody. I don't have that ability right now with 80 people spread across the globe. Some I probably won't meet in person for over a year. And I really miss having that capability because I don't know, is this person motivated by compensation? Are they motivated by praise? Are they motivated by, just being part of a team? Some people are in it, and that is something I'm struggling with. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, John.
Yeah, thanks, Senior. Let's see. Oh, so a question about Charlie. So Kristen asked about Charlie. So Mr. Charlie or Charlie Loudermilk, I got to work with him for a number of years. When I started at Aaron's, he was still the CEO. He founded the company in 1955, and he was active as as a chairman of the board all the way, I want to say, till 2014 maybe. So that's an amazing run, and I learned a lot from Charlie. The question was, I haven't seen him during the pandemic. I think he's doing fine. I haven't heard anything otherwise, but yeah, he's definitely. He won an award, and his son Robin. It was a real estate oriented award just recently, and we went to the dinner back in. It's one of the last dinners that I went to back in maybe February, March timeframe, and he. And Robin accepted the award for him. Very touching. Robin was really proud of his dad, as he should be. But I think it wasn't, Charlie's just not getting out and about as much. He's not as mobile, but he's still sharp as a tack. You can't take that away from him. He just isn't as mobile, I guess. What other questions? All right, while you're coming up with questions, I'll talk about a topic that I feel strongly about, and it's why I that the concept of that personal brand. And I don't think your mission should be necessarily to build a personal brand. I think your mission should be, if you read the book Ego is Enemy by Ron Holiday, another Simon Sinek compatriot that has great books and does awesome stuff. There's a concept of not painting the painting yourself, but providing the canvas upon which others paint their painting. And if you can set your ego aside and make other people be successful, you end up being successful yourself, whether you're successful just because of the gratification you get, or it actually promotes you from a career perspective. And I think it's the same way, whether it's TAG or ATP or Power My Learning or whatever the organization might be. I believe that, and the reason I accepted the request back in the day to help with the TAG Mobility Society and get to partner up with Larry and a bunch of other cool people at the time. I think Senior, you were on there as well. The reason that, and Don Addington was on there too. Yeah, we got a bunch of alums. The reason I did that was I just thought we needed to work together to promote mobility. And I wanted to frankly learn about mobility more than I did. We weren't even doing a lot of mobility stuff at Aaron's, but I wanted to learn about it. And what better way than to surround myself with people that are running mobile labs or that are running things for the chamber around mobility. And so I just signed up for that because I wanted to work shoulder to shoulder with really cool people. And I think when it comes to building a personal brand, don't think about it as what is your brand. Think about who you get to be around. That whole concept of you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Go surround yourself with those people. And I think over time what happens is your brand becomes an amalgamation of all these good people that you're spending time with, because you're learning, you're adjusting your approach, but you're running with people that are making you better. And if you're around people that are building you up versus tearing you down, that is really what I think building your brand is all about, because they're going to challenge you to be better. I've since hired a couple people that I worked with in TAG on like the Mobility Society, somebody who was on the board of the Mobility Society. And I did that because I got to see that person volunteering. He wasn't getting paid, and I got to see what he was able to do. And then sure enough, he came to Aaron's and he kicked butt and did amazing things. And I think the more you can put yourself in a position to help others, the more you're going to get out of it, because you're going to grow from that experience. So that's my take on the personal brand conversation. Let's see. The book. So Kyle, can you share the name of the book you just talked about? Yeah, Ryan Holiday. Yeah, Ego is the Enemy. I'd also recommend his book, The Obstacle is the Way. Both of those are really strong books. If you want a fun book to read, read the one called Conspiracy from Ryan Holiday. It's super long, but it's a really fascinating story. But I would do the other two first when it comes to helping yourself know more and be a better person.
John, how many books a week do you read?
It goes up and down, and I do a lot with audiobooks. Now that I'm not commuting as much, so I do audiobooks at 2x speed, and I probably retain 50% of the topic, but enough where I'm okay. Yeah, I would say it probably averages out to about once a week, but I might have a week where I do 2, and I might have a couple weeks where I do nothing, but it's probably one a week. And I believe strongly in that. I've already given book assignments to my whole team. I gave them Lean Enterprise to read. There's a great book, Accelerate. Like I could rattle off awesome books you should read. So yeah.
Books are great because then you don't have to smack anybody over the head. You let the author do it.
Well, exactly. and you know what? Going back to a senior's question about the why, there are things that I want us to be able to do as an organization. And I intuitively know the why because I've been living it for a while, but it's new to maybe a number of people. Like one of the things I believe in, you shouldn't have long living branches in software development and long living being more than a day. And that'll freak out people who go, you cannot merge to the trunk, daily. And the reality is you can. I've seen it done at scale with a lot of success. And I was on a call with one of our better developers, one of our best developers in Australia, and he had a branch that was 6 months old, and he's like going through the pain of merging a 6-month-old branch. And I was like, Chris, man, you shouldn't have a branch that's more than a day old. And it just freaked him out. But that's because he doesn't understand the why. And so that's why assigning a book will help him understand why it makes more sense to do something that way.
John, we have a question from Kristen. It says, how would you describe your personal brand? How do you feel about it? And would you change anything?
How do I describe my personal brand? That's interesting. I don't really think about it. Like I don't intentionally think about what is my personal brand. So let's see. I try to, first of all, I try to approach people and interact with people the same way that I'd want to be interacted with. I mean, it's golden rule stuff there. That's interesting. I don't know. That's a great stumper. I don't know how I would describe my personal brand. I know that I like to have fun, and I would not change that. And I might be I'm just sick of people that don't have fun. Like I can't tolerate it. And so it may be something that I probably should change because I'm maybe a little bit I joke around too much, but I just like having fun. I want to help people around me be better. I think if I sum up anything on my personal brand, I want everybody around me to be better. And one of my goals that I've had for probably about 12 or 15 years now is I want to look back when I retire and look across Atlanta, let's say, Georgia, and see people that are helping lead technology organizations or implementation of technology, and know that I somehow helped them do that. Whether it's whether or not I create some CIOs or CTOs, that'd be awesome. But just knowing that I've helped the community in some way, that's kind of how I would sum it up, maybe. Because I think if we can, so the selfish piece of that is if we can have a really, really strong technology community, when I need to dip into that technology community, it's going to be there for me. And if I don't work on building that, if I don't start 10 years ago, 12 years ago, building that, then maybe it wouldn't have been there for me. And maybe I wouldn't have known who to go to. And, knowing who's on this call right now, I could, for those of you that I know, I could tell you exactly what question I would go ask you. Anyway, I could go and ask you a certain question, and I know you would be the expert at answering that question, and that's a real value. So I don't think I answer your question at all, but maybe it's because I don't really think about my brand per se. What else?
Hey, John, I have a question. I've heard a pattern, right? In terms of, giving back, putting others before yourself. Um, what do you, why do you think that is for you, right? I mean, was there something in your, I guess, in your past, in your upbringing, in your interactions with others? Because it's very genuine and authentic, and that's not always the case for people, right? You can tell that genuineness of truly wanting to make a difference in someone's life. And I know you said sometimes it's selfish, but I think it's something deeper than that. And so I was just curious to know, what do you attribute that to, right?
Yeah, it might. I think it would be, if I could say who influenced me the most on that topic, it might be my dad. So my mom would help anybody, but my dad was just so amazing at that. And he wasn't, by all of today's measures, he wasn't quote unquote successful. Um, when I was growing up, he always worked 2 jobs and routinely would find a way to work 3 jobs. He would get up at 2 a.m. in the morning to go work for RGIS and do inventories at grocery stores so that he could start his real job, at 8 in the morning, and then still be home for dinner, and we wouldn't know any different. And he was doing that really because he needed to provide for his family. And while he was the first person in his family to ever get a college degree, he never was that successful professionally. But it didn't stop him from working hard, and he worked hard because he wanted to help others. And I can't tell you how many times throughout my life where he showed an example of how he would look out for people that other people maybe weren't looking out for. I actually shared a story. This is topical because his birthday would have been May 31st, and my sister posted something to Facebook about a story I didn't remember, but it reminded me of a story that when and her story was that we were going to church in Smyrna, Georgia, and the first Black family that ever attended our church showed up one day, and so they're in a sea of white people. And my sister recounted, and obviously a lot of this is topical, but recounted that the first thing he did is he went over and made sure that they were welcome and asked them to sit near us. And because he wanted other people to know that he's there for them. And it reminded me of something similar where he had heard a word that is inappropriate by somebody on the TV, and he was incensed that they would allow that filth on the TV. This was, in the South in mid 70s. And I remember him calling up, and he was a very gentle man. I remember him calling up the TV station and just yelling at them for allowing that filth on TV. And I think it goes back to the examples that he said every single day about if he saw somebody that should have been helped, he would go out of his way and sacrifice for himself to do that. And so maybe that's it, Kyle, that it comes from him probably in what he showed me.
No, thanks, John. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You should be sharing that.
So that was heavy and good. Can I ask something a little lighter that might not be as of importance, Kyle? That was great.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of stuff going on right now with the pandemic and priority shifting and all that. So, there's obvious things that are happening around contactless payment or this or that. What are some of the maybe non-obvious, from your perspective, non-obvious technologies you see emerging, coming out of this whatever we're in?
Yeah. Well,
anything you thought of?
Yeah. I mean, well, the most obvious thing is the same people at Aaron's that struggled with the concept of us having developers working remotely from time to time are now saying, we don't need to come back in the office anytime soon. That's just the concept of teleworking has gotten such a boost from coronavirus. And then so many things are layered on top of that, where, just every interaction now, you have to think of it a different way. I'll tell you one thing that has been very pleasantly surprising for Wahoo is people are realizing you don't have to go to a gym to work out. You can get an indoor trainer, get a bike. There is great virtual reality. There's a company called Zwift that we partner with that you can get on Zwift with your kicker or kicker bike, and you can ride virtually with friends. We have our own platform that's very similar that allows you to do structured workouts. You can train on Sufferfest is the name of our platform, and you can ride virtually on Zwift. I think that kind of stuff is going to accelerate, and people are going to find ways to make sure they're in control of their health, make sure they're in control of how they interact with the world without having to specifically go in somewhere to do it. And we see with takeout, I mean, just the boon for that concept and curbside pickup and all that. I think those are interesting things. Yeah, I mean, I just think people are going to get so much better at how they do things remotely, and they're going to think remotely first, and then figure out how to do stuff in person. And I'm a little bit concerned about that because I think it takes away some of the humanity. Like I mentioned, I won't be able to physically meet my team probably for a year because of the travel restrictions to Australia. But and we need to get back to that because I think trust is built in personal interactions. But I think there's a really good value out of it for the telecommunications piece. What else? Or have I exhausted my time? How am I doing?
Well, I'm going to respect everybody's time because thank you so much, John, for being here today and telling us about your wonderful journey. I think it was awesome and the questions were great. So thank you for being here again, and thank you for your involvement on the board and all your leadership with TAG. And just for everyone else, please look out for tagonline.org. Check out other events. We're doing tons of virtual events, and we have a full fall schedule coming up, including our first event on September 14th, which is Tag It. So please make sure you do that, and hope everybody has a great day.
Thank you, Rebecca, for all your hard work and pivoting on all the virtual. You've done fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks,
y'all.
John.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Yep, thanks, John.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Rebecca.